Hello and welcome to Follow the Money. I'm Raine Musñgi. Join us as we explore the tools and insights you need to jumpstart your financial journey. Wall Street's benchmark S&P 500 index rose on Wednesday, and a rally in tech stocks lifted the Nasdaq above the 20,000-point milestone for the first time. That's after a U.S. inflation report boosted expectations of a Federal Reserve interest rate cut. The S&P 500 gained 0.8% to end at 6084, while the Nasdaq Composite advanced 1.77% to 20,034. The Dow Jones Industrial Average dipped, dragged by health insurers as U.S. lawmakers introduced a bill seen as crimping their profits.
Weren't really any surprises in today's CPI number. I think the big pivot in expectations was, several weeks ago when it looked like the path for rate cuts wasn't going to be as aggressive as the market had originally priced in. So I think that's still the big open item. And you saw the fixed income markets in particular react to that. The backup that we had in 10-year rates, a couple of weeks ago was emblematic of that. I think that remains kind of the big bogey out there for investors going into the new year is, to what degree we see any surprises in the numbers. I think particularly the jobs numbers, if there were to be a surprise, I think it would come from there. And to what degree does that impact, the Fed path for rate cuts?
Meanwhile, the price of Bitcoin again rallied about $100,000 Wednesday, returning the cryptocurrency over the six-figure threshold. The cryptocurrency extended a post-election surge after the latest U.S. inflation report fell in line with analysts' expectations.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's a big psychological threshold. To your point, I remember having a discussion with a buddy in the industry back when Bitcoin was below $1,000, and there was talk about could it ever go to 100K, and it just seemed like pie in the sky back then, and now all of a sudden here it is. And so that's important. It's a very these psychological thresholds are very meaningful. I think it's also emblematic of kind of the shift that we've seen in the regulatory posture. So it's not just all fluff. There's kind of meaningful changes under the hood that have driven this latest bull run that I think are very bullish, going forward for Bitcoin.
Well, some $3 billion in tequila and mezcal imports from top makers of the popular spirits Diageo and Jose Cuervo owner Beckley are at risk from U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's planned tariffs on Mexico. Trump, who takes office on January 20th, has said he will slap 25% tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada, as well as additional duties on Chinese goods, which would hit companies in sectors from autos to retail. According to Mexican customs data reviewed by Reuters, these would also drive up the cost of importing spirits that cannot be made elsewhere, such as tequila, which is used in cocktails like margaritas and growing in popularity globally after taking off in the U.S., as well as mezcal. The world's top spirits maker Diageo and the largest tequila producer, Mexican firm Beckley, dominated the U.S. market for the agave-based drinks and rely heavily on tequila sales in the U.S. for growth. Diageo subsidiaries shipped over 25 million liters of tequila from Mexico to the U.S. last year, including brands Don Julio, Casamigos, De Leon, and 21 Seeds. The Distilled Spirits Council of the United States warned the tariffs would cost jobs. Diageo said it had decades of experience navigating trade policy and has always taken trade disputes in stride. This just in, the United States and China have resumed economic and financial talks. In an interview with Bloomberg, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen urged the next U.S. administration to maintain dialogue channels that she reestablished with China. CBS reports President-elect Donald Trump has invited Chinese President Xi Jinping to his inauguration on January 20th. That's as Xi continues to push for high-quality development amid what he says is a world full of turbulence and uncertainties. During the second session of the 14th National Committee on the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference in Beijing, Xi issued a series of important instructions on developing new quality productive forces in accordance with local conditions for high-quality development. The leader of the world's second-largest economy presented theoretical support and guide to action that he says have allowed China's economy to brave through the winds and waves toward a brighter future. China recently adjusted its fiscal and monetary policies from prudent to a moderately loose one for 2025, alongside strengthening unconventional counter-cyclical adjustments and expanding domestic demand on all fronts. Well, China's adjustment of its fiscal and monetary policies for next year will be conducive to the country's economic recovery and long-term growth. A professor at the Chinese Academy of Fiscal Sciences said Tuesday the slight change in wording to a more proactive stance indicates a stronger policy push for the upcoming year.
Compared with the policies in the past few years, a more proactive fiscal policy sends a more positive signal. We can observe that, when compared with major developed and developing economies, China's government debt ratio offers greater flexibility. Looking ahead, I think, the strong policy signals currently being released suggest that China can effectively leverage its room to increase its fiscal deficit and utilize a combination of policy tools. In this way, fiscal policy can play its role in stabilizing economic growth and providing sustained support for economic development.
On another front, Russian President Vladimir Putin said Wednesday that Western sanctions are pushing Russia to develop its own AI solutions. Speaking at the AI conference in Moscow, Putin called on Russian companies to focus on designing their own technologies, as it would help in strengthening the country's defense capability. Putin also promised Russia will share its new technologies with countries of the global south and east.
T-Bank, MTS, and VK have advanced in developing new neural models. You know, the restrictions that are being imposed on Russia, on the Russian economy, are pushing us to search for new solutions. And you, Russian scientists, are finding them. To shape the future, the fate of Russia, we must design such technologies ourselves. Of course, in cooperation with those who want to work with us. AI technologies are intended to become the most important resource for achieving national development goals, strengthening the country's defense capability, development of the economy in social sectors, public administration, and growth of innovations. In order to successfully meet these challenges, Russia must become a world leader not only in designing, but also in the scale of implementing and incorporating of artificial intelligence into all spheres of our life without exception. Russian companies intend to continue creating products and services based on artificial intelligence both for themselves and for the whole world. We will provide advisory technical assistance in the field of AI to the countries of the global south and east. And, of course, we hope to take their achievements from our partners.
Poland will add broadcasters TVN and Polsat to a list of strategic companies which cannot be taken over without government approval. The Polish Prime Minister said on Wednesday this decision means that without the consent of the Polish government, it is impossible to sell or buy these companies now subject to protection. Adding two of the country's biggest broadcasters to the list highlights increased concern about foreign interference, particularly in national elections. This comes after Romania's top court annulled an ongoing presidential election this month amid accusations of Russian meddling, particularly on social media. Russia denies interfering in elections in foreign countries. Poland's list of strategic companies which cannot be taken over without government consent currently includes mostly energy, chemical, and telecommunications companies.
Everything will be as transparent as possible, but we will not give up. We will not allow hostile countries to interfere in a brazen way, as happened in Romania, or recently in Moldova, or in many other places, in our daily lives, in our economy, or electoral processes, and our democracy.
The co-founders of a U.S. luxury real estate brokerage have been arrested on sex trafficking charges. Federal prosecutors said on Wednesday that accused brothers and co-founders of the official brokerage Oren Alexander and Tal Alexander, as well as their brother Alan Alexander, of raping dozens of victims. The Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office accused of drugging and sexually assaulting victims for more than a decade starting 2010. They each face one count of sex trafficking conspiracy and one count of sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. All three brothers have denied previous allegations. Official focuses on brokering high-end real estate sales and rentals in New York, Miami, the Hamptons, and Aspen, Colorado.
Today we are one step closer to obtaining justice and closure for the victims impacted by these horrible sexual abuse. It underscores our unwavering commitment to protecting the most vulnerable in our community. This case is a true testament that our city justice does not discriminate. A person's socioeconomic status doesn't matter. Acts of sexual violence will always be investigated by the Miami Beach Police Department.
Meanwhile, 6 countries will host the 2030 World Cup. The joint bid from Spain, Portugal, and Morocco to host the 2023 World Cup has been ratified at a FIFA Extraordinary Congress. FIFA had previously announced Spain, Portugal, and Morocco would co-host the tournament alongside Uruguay, Argentina, and Paraguay, hosting the first 3 matches to mark the tournament's centenary. It marks the first time the World Cup will be staged across 3 continents and 6 countries. Preparations are expected to cost billions of dollars for each nation.
3 países, 2 continentes.
3 countries, 2 continents, a single ambition, to organize a World Cup that will remain in everyone's memory. A World Cup that history will remember not only for being the best ever but for being the one that defined new standards for the future of the competition.
It has been 42 years since Spain organized a World Cup in 1982, and today many people dream of seeing this sporting event for the first time and many others to revive this spectacle in our country. Today we go hand in hand with 2 neighboring countries with which we want to build a championship of the world of several generations, because we want to mark the future with a unique World Cup, a competition with modern, iconic stadiums in the 3 countries that will offer the best conditions both for the game and for the fans who come to experience and enjoy it.
Our goal is one, which is organizing the best World Cup in the history of FIFA and in the history of football. Our goal is one, to create a unique event with the participation of any and every athlete, blending human and cultural aspects.
World Cup 2034 bid team celebrated in Saudi Arabia as they are confirmed also as the hosts of the tournament. Coming up, we dive deeper into how free trade agreements with South Korea could reshape the Philippines' economic future. Stay tuned to BNC and follow the money.
Bawat anggulo ng bawat issue.
9 out of 10 Filipinos ang nais na mapanagot ang mga corrupt officials.
Bawat detalye ng mga napapanahong pangyayari.
September 23 nang simulan ng Israel ang air attacks sa Lebanon.
Tuloy-tuloy na ihahati hanggang Sabado at Linggo. Weekend Agenda. Sabado at Linggo, 5:30 p.m. sa BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Welcome back. In today's episode of Follow the Money, we explore the crucial role free trade agreements play in expanding economic opportunities for the Philippines amid a shifting global trade landscape. Now, with negotiations finalized for the Philippines-South Korea FTA and the Philippines beginning discussions with Chile, we examine how these developments can redefine trade dynamics and foster growth. Joining us is Philippine ambassador to South Korea, De Vega. Ma'am, a pivotal figure in shaping the nation's trade strategies as well. Ambassador, an honor to have you join us. Welcome to Follow the Money.
Thank you very much, Raine, and it's an honor to be with you, and a pleasant day to all your viewers.
Grateful for you making time for us. The Philippine Senate ratified the FTA earlier last September 23. Now, South Korea, the parliament, approved it just last month. The DTI says potentially it could be completed by the end of the year. When do you expect the FTA with South Korea to be completed?
Well, in coordination with our colleagues at DTI, the Department of Foreign Affairs, and also our embassy here in Seoul, we're working hopefully towards an effectivity date before the close of this year.
So are we expecting, that's in a few days from now?
Yes, in a few weeks from now.
Right. Well, can you kindly briefly share with us the key objectives of that free trade agreement and its potential benefits for industries such as manufacturing and agriculture in the Philippines?
Well, this is part of the government's overall strategy in terms of developing various sectors in our economy. The goal really is to transform the Philippines to be Southeast Asia's hub for innovative, smart, and sustainable manufacturing and services by empowering the private sector through various market-based platforms and tools. And of course, in pursuing this vision, it's essential for our country to really work with like-minded partners who follow or who adhere to a similar vision. And Korea is, of course, one of our top partners in terms of trade, in terms of investments, and in terms of official development cooperation. So this fits in squarely within the vision of the Philippines. And in particular, the free trade agreement, which will hopefully take effect before the close of this year, actually targets very key sectors for the Philippines' development, and also to build synergy with Korea. Of course, these include the agriculture sector, the industrial and manufacturing sector, on innovation and R&D, and emerging areas of economic engagement, such as the health sector, pharmaceuticals, vaccine development, bioengineering developments, green technology, green transport, energy, the creative industries, and similar emerging sectors, which will be very important for the future direction of our own industrial and manufacturing policies.
We're actually looking at some of those details, and one of them is a reduction in import tariffs levied on Philippine bananas to South Korea, reduced annually from 30%. That's pretty substantial, until it becomes zero-rated on the 5th year. Now, considering that South Korea accounts for about 4% of Philippine imports and ranks about 8th among export destinations, how will tariff reductions under the FTA impact the trade balance and domestic industries?
Well, we're hoping that the elimination of tariffs over a certain period, as provided under the FTA, will help to balance the trade deficit with the Republic of Korea. And for our agricultural sector, particularly for producers of tropical fruits and vegetables, this is really a very important development for them. For the longest time, the Philippines actually has been #1 in terms of the fresh banana export market in Korea, but we've seen that market share erode through the years as, of course, Korea entered into various economic partnership agreements or FTAs with other countries who also produce the same products. So this will enable us to be more competitive and hopefully to regain the previous market share that we have in Korea. So we think that's very important. And also in other sectors, which would be part of the Philippines' gains under the FTA.
It seems like not just the Philippines, but a lot of other countries are initiating FTA talks with other nations, especially before President-elect Trump is inaugurated. Do you see this trend going on with the rest of the other countries?
Well, I can only speak from the perspective of where I am here in Korea. And Korea in particular has always been really a free market. They adhere to, a very rules-based open international trading order. And it's an export leading country. So naturally, you would see a lot of these movements, not just during this particular period in time, but also consistently. And I think it's very important to realize also that globally, there is the sense that economic partnership agreements, free trade agreements, regional trade agreements do contribute to boosting overall trade engagement. For example, for the Philippines and Korea, we're part of the ASEAN-Korea Free Trade Agreement. And of course, like Korea, we're also under the RCEP. And we've seen that since we've become a part of these trading agreements, that the overall volume of bilateral trade has gone up. And we believe, therefore, that having the bilateral free trade agreement will further bolster this economic engagement.
In light of that, are there strategies that the Philippines is employing to ensure that smaller businesses can also benefit from these agreements, especially amid concerns about competition from imported goods?
Yes. Well, the thing about the Philippines-Korea bilateral free trade agreement is that it also includes a very important section on eco-tech cooperation or economic and technical cooperation, which hopes to bolster not just the flow of goods and products, but also to build sectors and industries. So this particular section calls for increased cooperation and engagement on industrial development, including in the health and life sciences, on innovation and R&D, on the MSME sector, which is very important, on the creative and cultural industries, on intellectual property, on standards, technical regulations of conformity, on e-commerce, and other areas which may be agreed upon by the two countries. So this particular section of the free trade agreement really looks at bolstering and supporting and assisting some key sectors, some key industries which would benefit greatly from this, like the micro, small, and medium enterprises sector would benefit greatly from cooperation on innovation and R&D, and also on training and capacity building on standards and conformity to requirements. So there is that section of the FTA, which we hope will have a beneficial impact on the sectors which need it the most.
Those are wide-ranging categories to be affected by the FTAs, with the World Bank highlighting that FTAs does contribute significantly to GDP growth. Is there a way that the Philippines can leverage these agreements to achieve long-term economic resilience?
I think the key is, and this is what our colleagues at the Department of Trade and Industry and the Board of Investments have been pushing for, is that we've identified already priority sectors where we feel the Philippines can really develop into a hub for innovative and sustainable manufacturing, and that includes green transport in the EV industry and related industries to that, on smart high-tech manufacturing, semiconductors and electronics, of course, green metals and critical metals and raw materials, high-tech or smart agriculture, in the renewable and clean energy sector, and in setting up the data centers that we need to support this kind of industrialization forward movement. And I think since we are pushing for similar agreements with other key partners, I think we're on track to build this ecosystem to support industry development in various sectors here, and also to keep in step with emerging sectors where innovation, research, and technology will be felt the most, like in sustainable or green technology, in the health sciences and life sciences and health, sector and in transportation. These are all new areas, and of course the creative industry or the knowledge industries, where I think the vision for the Philippines being a hub will have a great impact.
Ambassador, this FTA between the Philippines and South Korea is pushing through despite the political uncertainties going on over there. Looking ahead, are there other nations or regions that the Philippines looks to collaborate with through FTAs? And what excites you the most about these opportunities for our economy?
Well, not to preempt, of course, our economic managers, but we do see a trend towards entering into or initiating discussions on various EPA agreements. Of course, with the EU, we've restarted these discussions in the Gulf area, in the Gulf region, with the United Arab Emirates, for example, and with Latin America. It's very exciting to see the various trade platforms, international and global trading platforms, where the Philippines is active, actually working towards very more specific and more focused mechanisms for economic engagement. For example, we're part of APEC, and it's very important for us to really foster and move on a more focused economic engagement with the other member economies. And it's exciting to see the Philippines explore economic engagement beyond our usual remit, our usual areas and our key partners, but to expand that to other potential partners and in areas where we need to really expand in terms of economic engagement.
Ambassador De Vega, bringing it down to real life experience, in your years of service, what has been the most rewarding moment in seeing trade agreements transform the lives of Filipino businesses or communities?
Well, we've seen the bigger picture, the official ceremonies or the signing of agreements of this nature. But what I find very fulfilling and very impactful is to see and meeting actual businesses who've benefited from these free trade agreements, and which we hope to do under the Philippines-Korea Free Trade Agreement. That's why there is an effort for more outreach through the Department of Trade and Industry and other agencies in the Philippines. Under the Philippines-Korea Free Trade Agreement, we are launching two very important platforms for FTA promotion, a single window, single hub, all about the free trade agreement, and also an origin management system, which will help to facilitate and cut down the processing of product evaluation reports and issuance of certificates of origin. And when we get feedback, we've already had initial feedback from the private sector that they find this very innovative and very helpful. And I think that's one major takeaway and something that we find very fulfilling, because we know in some measure we're making things easier. This is really in the spirit of the ease of doing business and encouraging greater economic engagement.
Well, the huge fan base of South Korea here in the Philippines, not just in terms of entertainment, but also in business. I'm sure these efforts will be successful in the coming years. Thank you so much for joining us today, Philippine Ambassador to South Korea, Teresa Dizon de Vega, for shedding light on these critical trade developments. Your insights are invaluable as we navigate the complexities of global markets. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Now, as Ambassador De Vega highlighted, free trade agreements are not just about economic numbers, but empowering businesses and uplifting lives through greater opportunities. And before we go, we leave you with this thought from Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau: in trade, as in life, we rise together or fall apart. And that is it for today's edition of Follow the Money. I'm Raine Musñgi. Thank you so much for watching. Keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News channel, always on top.